This is a shortened version of this video that focuses on the key important facts that I wanted to share with you for this lesson.
Let's start by looking at why these thinking tools or prompts are a differentiation method for students who are more advanced or who are gifted or who are ready to move to higher levels of thinking. These are prompts that are considered essential elements that a person would need in order to master a subject or just generally learn about something in a deeper manner. For example, let's take a look at chemists. If they were a chemist needs to understand the language of chemistry, different points of view from chemistry, the rules that would govern chemistry, and even ethical decisions that might arise in the life of a chemist. And so if you look at what I put in bold, language, points of view, ethics, and rules, those are higher levels of needs that a disciplinarian, an expert in the field, would need to have in order to be a successful whatever they are. When we apply this to the classroom, students use these tools and they learn how to approach these subjects areas from different points of view, from the point of view of an expert. And in doing so, they're able to go deeper and learn in more complex ways. Depth and complexity helps students get to those higher, broader levels of thinking. So what is it and what is it not? Well, depth and complexity are just simple prompts, and a prompt is meant to elicit thinking. They do need to be taught explicitly. They are iconic, they're visuals, so they do have to be taught at some point if students are not familiar with them. And we're going to look at some ways that you can do that in real easy examples. Just higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. They are visual markers for thinking that build agency in students. We want to be able to get our students to use these, utilize them on their own. Becomes their way of thinking about the subject area. And these prompts are used in conjunction with things like universal themes or thinking like a disciplinarian. What prompts are not are the teaching of just catchy, cute little icons or pictures. I don't want you walking away from this module thinking that you are teaching a separate curriculum of tiny, cute little pictures that really have no relevance or are significant. I also don't want you walking away thinking that you are doing something above and beyond your content area or the teaching of content. It's how you teach the content, not a different curriculum. So let's apply this to something really simple that we all probably love, chocolate. So we could analyze the trends of sales and marketing of chocolate, teaching us about economy. We could learn the language of a chocolatier, giving us insight into the required training for that art form. We could examine chocolate across disciplines, showing us how chocolate's linked to psychology and depression. We could even study health issues brought up by the ethics of promoting chocolate, or we could learn the rules of chocolate making and how it could become a science lesson. We could look at how chocolate's changed over time, giving us insight into the history of it, debate over the unanswered questions of whether it's really good for you, and reveal new information and lead to inquiry. So that's just a simple example of how you could take something as simple as chocolate and the prompts would allow you to unlock deeper learning. Let's take a look at how you could introduce this. And there is a video in the Guru collection where you're going to be seeing Dr. Kaplan explain how she would introduce this in a class. But let's take a look if you were to introduce this using a simple 4-quadrant frame with something familiar. And that's really important to introduce it to students that have never heard it before, something familiar. Something for my teenagers would be their use of cell phones. So we could analyze the topic of cell phones from looking at its rules, looking at it from different perspectives, looking at the specialized terminology, the techie language used when speaking or learning about cell phones. We can even look at ethical issues that have arisen associated with cell phones. I could break this chart into a team of 4 and have different students assigned a particular prompt and allow them time to investigate, research. I could give them texts to read, and then they would document their learnings and share. I could do this so many different ways, but this would just be a simple way to introduce the teaching explicitly of these icons. And of course, students can share their learnings with the class. So frames are just simplistic organizers that teachers have created to house these thinking prompts to allow students to reflect. Oftentimes, there are different things put here in this middle box. Sometimes students or teachers like to put big ideas or essential questions in this box. Sometimes it could be an image or a picture that students are responding to. It could be a particular quote or passage. It can be a math problem or principle. The sky's the limit with how you use the frames. When you're creating questions and writing prompts, or you want to elicit thinking, using what Kaplan calls keys, or verbs really, help activate the prompt. So you could use higher levels of thinking words, verbs like categorizing and identifying, describing, and these become really handy if you want to reference that cool new Bloom's taxonomy sheet I gave you. These become great when you are writing your objectives to make sure that you are hitting the higher level of Bloom's and activating that deeper thinking. Eventually, students become so good at using these prompts in their everyday reading and examining of content that they can begin to do what's called intersections. They can begin to blend prompts together. They can look at the details of past and present and future changes over time. They could study the ethical issues surrounding a particular big idea, so on and so forth. So we're going to go deeper with this. This was just the beginning, initial training to get you started. The rest of the Guru collection is going to provide some examples for how you can begin to utilize this in your classroom, as well as show you some student models of work.